My name is Everlyn Marsh. I'm 32, and I live in a quiet suburb outside Portland, Oregon, in a house with white shutters and a garden I planted myself. For 10 years, I believed my marriage was ordinary. Not perfect, but real. I know now that real was the biggest lie I ever let myself believe. I met Desmond Cole when I was 22, waitressing my way through community college. He was charming in the way rich men learn to be, never loud, never desperate, just quietly certain that the world would bend for him. When he proposed, his mother, Rosalind, stood behind him with her arms crossed and said, "Well, I suppose every family needs someone to do the ordinary work." I didn't understand then that she meant me. We built 3 properties together over the years. The lake house in Bend, the downtown condo, and this home. The one with my garden. I chose every tile, every doorknob. I told myself a home built by your own hands can't be taken from you. That Thursday evening, I was setting the table when Desmond walked in still in his work suit, holding a folder I didn't recognize. He didn't sit down. He just placed it in front of me like a waiter delivering a check. "Everlyn, I think it's time we're honest with each other." My hands went still over the plates. "Honest about what?" He didn't blink. "I've been seeing someone for a while now. I want a divorce." The room tilted. 10 years. The miscarriage I went through alone while he was in a meeting. The nights I stayed up finishing his father's hospital paperwork. The mornings I made his coffee exactly the way he liked it. All of it folded into one sentence. Delivered like a business memo. "How long is a while, Desmond?" He looked away first. "Does it matter?" It mattered more than he would ever understand. But I kept my voice level, because I had learned, in 10 years of this family, that panic was a currency they loved to spend against you. He opened the folder. "I'm not going to make this difficult. Pick one of the 3 properties, the lake house, the condo, or this house. Whichever you want. I'll sign it over free and clear." Fair enough. Fair, as if a decade of my life could be settled with real estate. I looked at him for a long moment, then down at the folder, then back up. "I don't want any of the houses, Desmond." He almost smiled, relieved. "Then what do you want?" I reached into my bag and set something small on the table between us, something he clearly did not expect to see again. His face went white. "Where?" he whispered. "Did you get that?" Desmond's eyes stayed locked on the small black flash drive sitting between us like a loaded gun. For a man who never lost his composure, watching him swallow hard was almost satisfying. Almost. "That's nothing," he said too quickly. "Where did you find it?" I didn't answer. Some silences say more than any explanation could. 3 weeks earlier, I had been cleaning out the garage storage unit, boxing up old files for donation, when I found it taped to the bottom of an old briefcase Desmond hadn't touched in years. My curiosity wasn't suspicion back then. It was just habit. The same habit that made me color code his tax documents and remember his mother's medication schedule. I plugged it into my laptop that night expecting old work presentations. What I found instead made my stomach drop. Spreadsheets, wire transfers, a second bank account under a name I didn't recognize, Marisol Vance, with deposits stretching back nearly 4 years, screenshots of messages, hotel receipts from business trips he swore were solo, and buried in a folder labeled personal, a single photograph, Desmond laughing, his arm around a woman with dark hair, standing in front of a house I had never seen before. A 4th property, one he had never mentioned, one that didn't exist in any conversation we'd ever had about our 3 homes. I hadn't confronted him that night. I told myself I needed to be sure, needed to understand what I was looking at before I let emotion make my decisions for me. My mother used to say, "A smart woman doesn't scream when she finds a snake. She watches where it goes before she decides how to kill it." I had spent 3 weeks watching. Now, sitting across from him at our dinner table, I finally spoke. "You said pick one of 3 properties, Desmond. But there isn't 3, is there?" His jaw tightened. "Everlyn, I don't know what you think you found." "I know about Marisol." My voice didn't shake. I made sure of that. "I know about the house on Cedar Hollow Road. I know about the account you opened under her name. What I don't know yet is how deep this goes, and honestly, that's the only reason I haven't already called my lawyer." For the first time in 10 years, I watched real fear cross Desmond Cole's face. He reached for the flash drive. I closed my hand over it first. "This," I said quietly, "isn't yours anymore." Before he could respond, my phone buzzed on the counter. An unknown number. I almost ignored it until I saw the message preview light up the screen. 4 words that made my blood run cold. "I know what you found." I stared at the message until the screen dimmed on its own. "I know what you found." My thumb hovered over it, my heart hammering somewhere in my throat. "Who is that?" Desmond asked, trying to peer at my phone. For the first time, I saw something unfamiliar on his face. Not guilt, but genuine unease. I turned the screen away from him. None of your business anymore. I excused myself to the bathroom, locked the door, and opened the message with shaking hands. It wasn't a threat, not exactly. It was a photograph. The same house on Cedar Hollow Road from the flash drive. But this time with a woman standing on the porch. Very pregnant, one hand resting on her stomach. Under it, another message. "Call me. We need to talk about him. Marisol." My mind reeled. If this was Marisol reaching out to me, then whatever she and Desmond had wasn't the simple, contained affair I'd imagined during my 3 weeks of quiet watching. Something had cracked between them, and cracks like that didn't happen without a reason. I typed back with cold, careful fingers, "Who is this?" The reply came almost instantly. "You know who? I've been trying to find you for 2 weeks. He told me you didn't exist anymore, that you signed papers years ago. I just found out that was a lie." The bathroom floor seemed to tilt beneath me. 2 women, both told a version of a life that didn't include the other. Both, it seemed, deceived in different directions by the same man holding the same charming, unbothered smile at dinner tables in 2 different houses. I splashed water on my face and looked at myself in the mirror. A woman who had spent a decade making herself smaller. So a family could stay comfortable? That woman was gone. I didn't know yet who was standing in her place, but I knew she wasn't going to cry in a bathroom over a man who had built an entire second life behind a garage wall. When I walked back to the dining room, Desmond was pacing, his phone pressed to his ear, voice low and urgent. He hung up the second he saw me. "Everlyn, whatever you're planning, just talk to me first. We can handle this quietly, like adults." Quietly? I almost laughed. "Is that what you told Marisol too? That I didn't exist?" His face drained of color so fast I thought he might actually stumble. "How do you—" My phone buzzed again in my hand. Another message from Marisol. This one longer, and as I read the first line, my blood turned to ice. "Everlyn, there's something else you need to know. It's not just about the affair. It's about your father-in-law's will, and what Desmond did to make sure you'd never see a cent of it." I read the message 3 times before the words fully registered. Your father-in-law's will, Desmond's father, Harlan Cole, had passed away 18 months earlier. After a long illness, I had personally helped nurse him through the hospital visits, the medication schedules, the nights I sat by his bed while Desmond claimed to be handling business. I looked up at Desmond, and for the first time in 10 years, I felt something colder than heartbreak. I felt clarity. "What did you do, Desmond?" He ran a hand through his hair, and the mask he'd worn so effortlessly for a decade finally slipped. "Everlyn, you don't understand the position I was in. Father wanted to leave you something directly, a portion of the estate, separate from me. Rosalind panicked. She said it would make things messy if we ever divorced. So you changed it?" "I didn't change anything," he said too fast. The way guilty men always speak too fast. "I just had the lawyer redraft certain sections before he signed the final version. Father wasn't fully lucid by then. It was easier for everyone. Easier for everyone except me. Except a dying man whose last wishes had been quietly rewritten by his own son while I spooned him soup and held his hand through the pain." My phone buzzed again. Another message from Marisol. "I have copies of the original will. Harlan gave them to me before he died. He didn't trust Desmond or Rosalind by then. He said if anything ever happened to him, I should find you." I sat down slowly, the folder with the divorce papers still open on the table. Utterly meaningless now compared to what was unfolding in my hands. "Harlan trusted her," I said quietly, almost to myself. "Not you. Not your mother. A woman he'd never even met." Desmond's composure cracked completely. "Everlyn, please. Whatever she's telling you, it's not the full story. Marisol has her own reasons to hurt me. She's angry. She's emotional. She's pregnant and hunting for leverage." Pregnant. I looked up at him. You didn't mention that part. His silence was answer enough. I stood gathering the flash drive, my phone and my composure, piece by piece, like assembling armor I didn't know I'd need tonight. "I'm going to meet her," I said. "Everlyn, don't. You don't know what she's capable of." I paused at the doorway, looking back at the man I had loved for a decade, who had let his dying father's true wishes be buried along with him. "No, Desmond," I said softly. "The question is what you're capable of. And I think I'm only just beginning to find out." I walked out into the cold Portland night, dialing Marisol's number with hands that had finally stopped shaking. Marisol answered on the second ring, her voice careful, guarded. You actually called? You said you have the original will, I said, standing beside my car in the driveway, my breath fogging in the cold air. I need to see it, tonight. There was a pause. There's a diner on 12th and Alder, 20 minutes. Come alone. I drove through empty streets with my knuckles white on the wheel, replaying 10 years in fragments, Harlan's hand gripping mine in the hospital, Rosalind's clipped voice at every family dinner, Desmond's easy lies stacked like bricks I'd mistaken for a foundation. The diner was nearly empty. Marisol sat in the back booth, a manila envelope in front of her, her hand resting protectively over her stomach. Up close, she wasn't what I expected. No smugness, no triumph, just exhaustion and something that looked uncomfortably like recognition. One wounded woman to another. I didn't know about you, she said before I even sat down. Not for the first year. He told me his marriage ended a long time ago, that you two just hadn't finalized paperwork because of his mother's health. I believed him because I wanted to. I slid into the booth. And now I'm 7 months pregnant, living in a house he pays for in cash so it doesn't trace back to your accounts. And I just found out 3 weeks ago that none of it was true. She pushed the envelope toward me. Harlan found out about me before he died. He wasn't angry. He said he understood loneliness and mistakes and men like his son, but he was furious about the will. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter in shaky penmanship I recognized instantly. Harlan's. Everlyn, if you're reading this, it means Desmond did exactly what I feared he would. The lawyers redrafted my estate documents while I was heavily medicated, cutting you out entirely and consolidating everything under Desmond and Rosalind. This is not what I wanted. You cared for me when my own son couldn't be bothered. The original will, notarized and witnessed before my illness worsened, leaves you 40% of the estate, independent of your marriage, protected even in divorce. I've left a copy with my estate attorney, Mr. Whitfield, and a second copy with Marisol, the only person left I trusted not to let this disappear. I'm sorry it took me until the end to see clearly. Harlan. I read it twice, my eyes burning. 40%, independent of the marriage, protected even in divorce. Marisol watched me carefully. There's one more thing you should know before you decide what to do with this. I looked up. What? Her voice dropped. Rosalind knew about the redrafted will before Harlan even died. And she wasn't just covering for Desmond. She slid a second, smaller paper across the table. A bank transfer record, dated months before Harlan's death, with a name in the sender field that made my stomach drop. It wasn't Desmond's name at all. I stared at the name on the transfer slip. Rosalind Cole, not Desmond. My mother-in-law, sending $40,000 to an account labeled only W. Ashford, Legal Consulting. Dated exactly 6 weeks before Harlan's death. Who is W. Ashford? I asked, though some cold instinct in me already suspected the answer. Marisol's voice was quiet. The lawyer who redrafted the will, not the family's regular attorney. Rosalind brought him in specifically. Harlan's real attorney, Mr. Whitfield, didn't even know the new version existed until after the funeral. The pieces clicked into place with sickening precision. Desmond hadn't orchestrated this alone. He hadn't even been the architect. Rosalind, who had looked down on me since the day I walked into her family, who called my years of devotion the ordinary work, had paid to have her own dying husband's true wishes erased, and used her son as the convenient face of it. Why would she do that to Harlan? He was her husband. Marisol shook her head slowly. I don't think it was ever about Harlan. I think it was about making sure nothing left this family that she couldn't control. Not money, not property, not even loyalty. She hesitated, then added, Everlyn, there's something else. I only found this because I panicked and hired my own investigator after Harlan reached out to me. Rosalind's been moving money for over a year, small amounts, spread across different accounts. I think the estate isn't the only thing she's hiding. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Desmond the fourth in the last 10 minutes. Where are you? We need to talk. Please don't do anything rash. I turned the phone face down on the table. I want to see Mr. Whitfield, I said. Tomorrow. First thing. Marisol nodded, sliding both documents, Harlan's letter and the transfer record, into a fresh envelope and handing it to me. There's a copy of everything on a drive at my house, too, in case anything happens to these. In case anything happens. I looked at her. You think they'd actually... I think, Marisol said carefully, that a family willing to erase a dying man's final wishes for money isn't a family that stops at paperwork. She placed a protective hand over her stomach again. That's why I reached out to you in the first place. I don't trust them near this baby. And I don't think you should trust them near whatever's left of your marriage. I drove home that night with the envelope locked in my glove box, my mind racing through 10 years of dinners at Rosalind's table, of her cool smile, her careful control of every conversation. I thought I had already discovered the worst of what this family had done to me. I was wrong, and the woman who would prove it to me next wasn't Marisol at all. It was waiting for me in my own driveway when I pulled in. Arms crossed, headlights catching her face in the dark. Rosalind. Rosalind stood in my driveway like she owned it. Her silver hair perfectly set even at this hour. Her coat buttoned against the cold. Behind her, I could see Desmond's car. He must have called her the moment I left the house. "Get out of the car, Everlyn," she said, not a request. "We need to discuss how you're going to behave over the next few days." I stepped out slowly, the envelope from Marisol still burning a hole in my glove box. My mind sharp despite the exhaustion pressing down on me. Behave, Rosalind? That's an interesting word from a woman who forged her own husband's will. Her face didn't flinch, not even slightly. That, more than anything, told me everything. I didn't forge anything. I protected this family from a foolish old man's guilt-driven impulses in his final weeks. Harlan wasn't in his right mind. He was lucid enough to write me a letter, I said. Lucid enough to leave a copy with his real attorney. Lucid enough to trust a stranger over his own wife. For the first time in 10 years, I watched real anger crack through Rosalind's composure. That woman is a homewrecker carrying my son's bastard child, and you're going to trust anything she hands you? I trust bank records, Rosalind. $40,000 to W. Ashford 6 weeks before Harlan died. That's not something Marisol invented. That's your signature. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear my own heartbeat. Rosalind's jaw tightened, and for a moment, I thought she might actually deny it outright. Instead, she took a slow step closer, her voice dropping into something quieter, and far more dangerous than her usual sharpness. You have no idea what you're playing with. This family has spent 3 generations building what you're threatening to tear. Apart over money you never earned. You think Whitfield's copy of that what matters? Documents disappear, Everlyn. Witnesses forget things. People make mistakes when they push too hard against people who have more to lose than they do. It wasn't quite a threat. It was worse. It was a promise, delivered as calmly as she once critiqued my table settings. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm educating you," she said coldly. "Something your own mother clearly never did." Headlights swept across the driveway as another car pulled in behind hers, and out stepped a man I didn't recognize. In a dark coat, holding a briefcase, his expression grim. "Mrs. Cole," he said, looking directly at me, ignoring Rosalind entirely. "Everlyn Cole?" "Yes, my name is Gerald Whitfield. I was Harlan Cole's attorney." He glanced once at Rosalind, whose face had gone pale for the first time all night. "I think it's time we talked. Somewhere private. Because what I found in his original files 3 days ago is going to change everything you think you know about this family, including who really benefits if you disappear from the picture." Gerald Whitfield sat across from me at my own kitchen table an hour later, Rosalind having stormed off after realizing threats meant nothing to a man who'd already filed the paperwork. "Harlan came to me 2 months before he died," Whitfield said, opening his briefcase. He suspected Rosalind was manipulating his care team, controlling who could see him when. So he did something she never anticipated. He recorded a video testimony, notarized and witnessed, reaffirming the original will and explicitly naming the fraud he expected his wife and son to attempt. He played it on his tablet. Harlan's frail voice filled my kitchen. "If anyone tries to alter my final wishes, know that I saw it coming. Everlyn cared for me with more love than my own blood. 40% of my estate is hers, untouched by marriage or divorce. And if Rosalind or Desmond attempted to hide assets or falsify documents to prevent this, I want full investigation into every account they control." I sat frozen, tears finally falling, not from grief, but from something closer to vindication. "There's more," Whitfield said gently. "The forensic accountant I hired found nearly $2 million. Rosalind quietly moved offshore over 18 months. Money that belonged to the estate, meant for both Harlan's grandchildren and, under his true wishes, for you. Fraud, elder manipulation, forgery? The DA's office already has the file." 3 weeks later, I sat in a courtroom and watched Rosalind Cole, stripped of her composure for the first time in 10 years, face charges of elder financial abuse and fraud. Desmond, implicated for helping falsify signatures, lost everything he'd tried to hide behind. His mother's protection evaporating the moment her own crimes surfaced. I was awarded my full 40% of Harlan's estate. along with damages from the fraudulent divorce filing Desmond had rushed through. Marisol, in an unexpected turn none of us anticipated, testified against them both, not for revenge, but because, as she told me outside the courthouse, your father-in-law trusted me with the truth. I wasn't going to waste that. We aren't friends, Marisol and I, but we send each other photos now. Her daughter, born healthy in spring, and my new life, rebuilt from the wreckage of a marriage that was never what I believed it to be. I sold the house with the white shutters. I didn't need it anymore, and some gardens, no matter how carefully tended, grow in soil that was never really yours. I bought a small cottage near the coast instead, planted new flowers with my own hands, and framed one thing on my living room wall. Not a photo, not a certificate, but the printed transcript of Harlan's final words. Because in the end, the one thing that destroyed them wasn't money, or property, or revenge. It was the truth they thought a dying man could never tell.